Tessa, it's so lovely to meet you, even though it's on Zoom.
Thank you so much, and it's lovely to meet you too.
Thank you.
And you're in Vienna this morning.
Yes, I'm here in Vienna and in lovely sunny Vienna. This
Oh,
is the
wonderful.
one thing about Vienna that I enjoy so much is the sunshine.
Lovely. And tell me, has your lockdown eased in Vienna?
Yeah.
It has.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah.
So
and
you can
with you?
Also, it's eased with us too, and so life is a lot more back to normality.
Yeah.
And concerts are happening again. I was just telling Ben, I went to a prom concert. The prom concerts are running this year. They were cancelled last year. So it was great to hear a symphony orchestra for the first time in about 18 months.
Wonderful, yeah. And to people, are they wearing masks or are they?
Well, they are wearing masks on public transport. At the Albert Hall, we all had to wear masks, but it was optional when you went into the concert hall. You could take it off. But many people were wearing masks in the concert hall.
Okay. Great, and Ben, we are talking about your wonderful CD, and Tessa, I've been hearing also from you, and because I spoke to Ben during the series that I did of Moments in Lockdown, and he was telling me about this wonderful project that you did during this time, and I'm so happy that the two South Africans doing this project.
Well, it has been a wonderful. It's in a way, it seems a little bit like the finger of fate that Ben and I were introduced and got together. About 13 years ago through the Royal Overseas League. Ben was a gold medal winner, and I had won the same. I won't say how many decades ago. However, we were invited and to meet. And then we were invited to play for the first time together in 2010. And then the story with the Scharwenka, the Beethoven Symphonies, occurred about 5 years later, which is a story in itself, but Ben can carry on. But that's how we met at the Royal Overseas League.
Yes, it's a Commonwealth organization. It was founded in 1910. And they always promote the arts, and not only music, but visual arts from the Commonwealth countries like, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, obviously, as well. So for us, it feels a bit like a home from home here in London, because they host wonderful concerts. And I was very fortunate, of course, during a scholarship visit from South Africa to come over for 6 weeks to London. And that's when I met Tessa at their garden party, and that was a wonderful occasion for me. And it was also wonderful to starting to perform with Tessa, not only as a duet on one piano, but then on two pianos as well as a duo.
Yeah, that's great. And there are quite a lot of South Africans and artists, in Europe and in the UK as well. So are you all connected in a way? Do you know of each other?
Well, we do. I think we are aware of not everybody, but, I guess what
yes, Tessa, Tessa has worked with wonderful singers, for example, over the years, who came to study at one of the colleges or the conservatoires here in London.
I see. Yeah, no, I understand the question better now. Yeah, no, I have actually been working not only with a wonderful South African singer. His name was Sipiwo Nchebe. He was a remarkable talent who came over here, studied at the college, and over the years he was invited by Nelson Mandela to sing at the opening of the games in South Africa. Was it in 2010? And he was offered a 6 CD box set, and he actually recorded the first one for Sony, and we worked together quite a lot on this. And then he went back to South Africa for this occasion, and the most terrible, tragic thing happened. He contracted meningitis 3 weeks before the event. He passed away. But But that CD is still available, and that was
Oh my
Superior,
goodness.
and then another ensemble which we formed was, we call ourselves the Ubuntu Ensemble. These are all South Africans born in Cape Town who've all lived here for many, many years. And the leader of the ensemble is Peter Schoeman. It must be a distant relation of Ben.
Yeah.
And then Leon Bosch, double bass. Louis Lansdowne is head of strings in Birmingham. And Rudy de Groot, the son of Oliver, from the famous de Groot family. So we give a number of concerts each year. So that is my sort of main connection. Yeah. And Ben, what about you?
And I think the two of us, we are also a testament to the South African bond. We are so fortunate to also speak Afrikaans, and to, we have a very great cultural link and understanding. So that makes it also very easy for us to rehearse and perform all the wonderful music. But yes, the South African community is quite tightly knit, and we've also played at the South African House on Trafalgar Square, which is a beautiful venue, and it's got great potential, I think, also to have a good concert series in the future, I hope.
Absolutely. They have a good Steinway chosen by the previous High Commissioner was Lindiwe Mabuza, and she was she did much to promote the arts and music in particular. She had been in Bonn. She had been ambassador in Bonn, a couple of decades ago, and met Justus Franz, the great German pianist. And he actually chose that Steinway, which is now standing in the High Commission in Trafalgar Square. So it's it's a very good instrument. And we look forward to playing that soon.
So tell me about this recording that you did, and all what are the pieces that you played?
Well, it started really, this particular project, in 2015, and it was an interesting story. There was a Beethoven festival in the city of London, arranged by Graham Allum, and he arranged for a pianist to perform the opening concert, a very large work, namely the 9th Symphony of Beethoven, transcribed for solo piano by Franz Liszt. And, well, this is technically impossible to play, I think, this work in that format. And sadly, I don't know for what reason, but the poor pianist actually had to withdraw from the concert only a few weeks prior to the event. And Graham was in a bit of a panic. He said that, he phoned Tessa immediately and said, "Tessa, do you possibly know somebody else who could perform the work?" And Tessa said, "Well, I'm not so sure, but I do have something in mind." And of course, you brought from Cape Town your extraordinary, wonderful collection of music scores that belong to your mother.
That's right.
Helga Bassel. So Tessa, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, so I remember that somewhere in my collection I had my mother's scores, and I remembered that there were many symphonies in duet form, which I brought, by Bruckner and Brahms and Haydn and Schubert and Mozart and Beethoven. And I had put them in one specific shelf, had not, been to that area of the shelf for about 20 years, but I went straight there after the phone call, and there were these two great big volumes, all the Beethoven symphonies, transcribed by Xaver Scharwenka. And you can tell a little bit about Xaver, and I'm going to fetch the scores to show you what they look like.
Yes, please.
No.
Yes, that would be so wonderful. Yeah.
It's a very interesting study for us. We actually looked at many different types of arrangements of Beethoven symphonies in the process, because there were many, during the 19th century, many musicians like Karl Czerny and a lot of Viennese musicians, in fact, who transcribed Beethoven's symphonies, arranged them for home use and for piano duets to make this music more accessible to the general public who might not have had access at that time to symphony concerts or concert halls. So this was actually the best way for these for people at homes to get to know Beethoven's wonderful works. And Scharwenka was a Polish-Prussian musician. He was born in Posen, which is today called Poznan in Poland. And he was a virtuoso pianist, a very renowned interpreter of Chopin's music. And he founded a piano school in Berlin, a very successful piano school. And his own compositions are remarkable. He wrote a lot of beautiful piano concertos for, I believe. And but then Tessa discovered these amazing transcriptions for piano duet of all 9 Beethoven symphonies by Scharwenka. And we soon discovered that this was a fantastic arrangement, not only an academic one like maybe other people did, like Otto Singer and Hugo Ulrich. Hugo Ulrich was,
right.
It's a bit clinical, and we felt that the Scharwenka had a lot more depth and warmth because the way he transcribed it was, I suppose, more from a pianistic perspective. And as a concert pianist, he wrote these wonderful versions, and that's why I think it resonates so well with us. We feel that it's very pianistic, even though it is extremely demanding. And it's been out of print for many, many decades. It's never been recorded. So it's really a new discovery.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Isn't that amazing? And it's all there. I mean, it's you didn't lose any piece there.
No, we
kept it all
together. Wow. This is the first volume, and this is the second volume, and the last page is almost on its last legs.
Oh my goodness! Oh
wow! We've performed the 9th Symphony about 20 times now, so you can see that we've dissected this score.
Yeah, definitely. You chewed that
one. But also the big thing is that your mother, Tessa, she grew up in Berlin. She did. She studied at the Hochschule, the Akademie für Musik, with Leonid Kreutzer.
She did, and she was engaged to a geologist by profession, but he was also a very, very gifted musician, composer, and pianist. And the two of them used to do a lot of sight reading and playing of all these symphonies. That's why she had such a big collection. And I actually have pictures of them playing together, beautiful photographs, which we've actually used. We've used, I'll go and fetch a picture to show you how, and that was also a wonderful link with the past. Franz and my mother in Berlin playing duets. And so we've actually used that in publicity photographs.
But the big thing is also that Scharwenka taught in Berlin, and so it's almost as if his spirit was looming around your mother at the time, and it must have been so interesting. A very rich period, because Busoni was also a piano teacher in Berlin at the time, Ferruccio Busoni, and he was obviously a colleague and friend of Scharwenka as well. And so I can only imagine that Berlin must have been a fascinating musical world in the 20s, also in that time of the Weimar Republic, when people were actually very artistically inclined before the horrible Nazis actually came along. But this was really
will you be able to see there?
Oh, I can see, yes. Oh, amazing. Oh, this is so wonderful. This is very special.
So you can see the two of them playing. And so Helga went to Cape Town.
But listen, I love these stories where, where you have these very old music notes, and your mum left it for you. Of course, she must have also loved this music, and she must also have kept it because it was special to her. And now you discovered it in this way. But did you know all the time that it was there, and that did you play it before, or was it just on the shelf there?
No, it was on the shelf. I hadn't played it before, but I knew that I had a big collection of, as I say, many symphonies. but I didn't specifically. I hope that I would have, all the symphonies, and they were there in 2 volumes. So it was simply, it was.
So we had very little time to prepare it then, because the pianist had withdrawn. So we'd never played it. And I went to Italy and to Poland. I couldn't cancel my trip. And so when I came back, I only had a few days, really.
Had a few days.
So that was an amazing thing to do, to prepare the whole 9th Symphony in a few days. We practiced about 12 hours a day, and just passed out in between, and then continued practicing. And on a 3rd of August, 2015, we performed the 9th Symphony for the first time. And that was an amazing occasion. It was a packed audience, and we didn't know how they would react, but I think they were extremely excited. And it was a wonderful occasion for us. So that sparked the beginning of a really fruitful project.
And did you use those scripts, those scores? Did you play from those scores?
Yes, we did. We played from the scores. And so, of course, subsequently, slowly but surely over the years, we've studied all the symphonies. And so 9 symphonies. We started with the 9th, which is the longest and in a way the most complex. But then we have gone through them. And at the moment, we are almost now recording the 4th CD of our box set. We're doing that in a number of weeks' time. We've already recorded 3 of them. And the first CD was released on the 23rd of July.
And that includes the Symphony number 3, the Eroica by Beethoven, and also a very interesting work for 2 pianos by Robert Schumann. It's called 6 Studies in Canonic or Canon Form. And they were written for a pedal piano, which was a very interesting old instrument in the 19th century, like an organ, but in piano form. So there were basically 2 pianos on top of each other.
That's right.
With a pedal board. And so one pianist could play the piano like an organ. And these wonderful studies were written for that instrument by Schumann. And luckily, then Bizet got hold of the score and transcribed it for, I think, piano duet. But then Debussy consequently got hold of it as well, and he transcribed it for 2 pianos. And this is a really very beautiful arrangement, and we were very fortunate to then record that alongside the Eroica Symphony on the first CD. So that's on the market now under the Som label in London, and also on Apple Music and Spotify and Amazon,
so
everywhere.
This is what I saw on Facebook. This that you had posted. Is that the CD that you're talking about now? That you posted?
This is the one that came out in July, and so as Tessa said, we have recorded some of the other CDs already. The second one will probably come out in about 6 months. I'm not sure,
right. Yeah.
And that will include the 5th Symphony, which is of course a very popular work. And works for 2 pianos as well by Camille Saint-Saëns and
by
Schumann, Andante and Variations. So we tried to couple the works of Scharwenka and Beethoven Scharwenka with contemporaries of Scharwenka, like Schumann and Busoni, Debussy, Saint-Saëns. So this makes it a very interesting combination, not only of the Beethoven works, but other pieces written at that time.
How do you make the connection? How do you choose the pieces that you put on the CD?
Well, that too, it wasn't difficult for us to do that because we wanted to combine, as Ben said, the contemporary of Scharwenka. And again, I had in fact, all the music, because my parents, my mother was a concert pianist. My father was a very good pianist. He was actually mainly a church organist and did a lot for church music in South Africa. But they had performed as a 2-piano team And this might be of interest to you that in 1949, my parents performed in the film by Pierre de Wet called Kom Saam Vanaand.
Really?
Yes. There's a story about a very gifted young singer who has an accident, and then they decide to have a big concert to collect funds to enable her to, to continue her studies and have medical and so on. So they called upon all South African performing artists, or many of them, to perform at this concert. And my parents performed, and they flew up to Pretoria to make the film, and they looked like movie stars. Yeah,
Oh, really?
I've seen it. And they played from the Nutcracker Suite, the Sugar Plum Fairy, and the second Rhapsody by Liszt. So anyway, the reason I'm telling you this is that they performed a great deal in South Africa, and they had a big repertoire. So the repertoire we chose, the other piece by Schumann, the Andante and Variations, they performed. The Saint-Saëns they performed, and the Busoni, one of the pieces, they also performed. And I've actually got on the front page, my father always used to list the dates and places of their performances. So, and we have their fingerings in the music, and they're written, so it's all very...
It's a tribute to them as well. And I think also we have the scores, and we wanted to learn his works as well. And we recorded in February this work by Saint-Saëns. It's called Variations on a Theme by Beethoven, Opus 35. And it is indeed a fantastic composition. Saint-Saëns really understands the piano so well, and is such a virtuoso composer, and he must have been a phenomenal pianist himself. And I think it's a fantastic work because it's based on one of the piano sonatas, number 18,
Opus 31, number 3.
The Hunt, the slow movement. There's a beautiful little musical fragment that he used as a basis for these variations. So that also ties in very nicely with the Beethoven concept in any case.
But what I'm thinking now, looking at you two, is how wonderful that you also connect in this way, that you understand, or that you have the same feeling about the music, that you sort of now talking about this, your enthusiasm about it and so on. And this is wonderful. So I think this makes it part of the project, that you have this wonderful chemistry working together.
It's a very intimate process to play piano duets at one instrument. It takes a lot of adjustment and maneuvering and planning, and many, many hours of rehearsal, because one has to try and ascertain what the best sound picture would be, how to do the pedaling, for example. And that really requires so many hours from us, and we really enjoy that. And that's also why we are so enthusiastic, I think, is we have really almost immersed ourselves in every aspect of the music, and the Beethoven symphonies in particular, which as pianists, we knew them, listening to these wonderful works, analyzing them, studying them, hearing them at concerts, but to really play them ourselves and to get to know all these intricate lines, that's something that I find particularly wonderful. It's a privilege, really, to get to know orchestral music like that. And Tessa, you are very, I think you've played so many works of Beethoven and sonatas. I think that it's always very wonderful to benefit from your wisdom.
Well, likewise, thank you.
But, also just to bring things alive technically and through articulation, and because we imitate the different instruments in the orchestra, like the oboe, that wonderful solo in the Fifth Symphony, or the horns in the Eroica Symphony, in the scherzo.
And the slow movement of the Eroica on this recording that is now available, the funeral march, where Ben plays the second piano, and he has all these quiet sort of flourishes. You can't just demonstrate that, I think, which he plays so magnificently. Which
are you at the piano? Yeah. Oh yes.
No.
We could. It's just this bit. it's a
So
powerful
very
piece of
powerful
music that.
And we recorded in a beautiful venue, the Yehudi Menuhin School in Surrey, and the instruments there are particularly beautiful, and this bass line, I mean, it was so haunting, and the way you played it was wonderful.
We actually, when we recorded the second movement of the Eroica, we became extremely emotional, I think. I remember that as something that stands out during our sessions, that I was truly, truly moved by the music and the way it progresses. And so it's actually a golden moment to have that during recordings, because it's stressful, I think, to have to obtain the levels of perfection and precision that are required during recordings, and to repeat certain passages over and over, to still, amidst all of that,
to have the spontaneity
and the musical fire that I think. So we're also listeners, just like we are performers, we become listeners, and we experience it like the audience, and that makes it really special.
But I do very much believe that I mean, the music is an energy that comes to the audience, but I also believe that the artists who play the music and who your emotion and your energy also comes with this music, you know. And I think this was what makes different artists so separate from each other, that it's not just, you know, it's the same notes that you play, but it's with a different feeling and a different emotion that you play it. And I was actually going to ask you now this thing where while you are playing, do you feel this excitement? And you say you felt this emotion in this piece, but can you feel it from each other as well while you're playing, sitting so close to each other?
I think we are very connected, you know, with our music. We've lived with it for years now. We've worked on it. We've listened to it played by orchestras. We're kind of so deeply involved with this music that I think
we start to feel it together.
We do.
And there's a psychic element that comes into play. But I also want to add about the current situation in which we find ourselves in this, with the pandemic and COVID. Playing music like this has even more meaning. And we have felt of course, we saw the devastating effects all over the world. And last year, particularly during the very severe lockdowns, we saw this as a bit of a lifeline to be able to record this music and practice it and rehearse it, because I think music is one of the greatest energizers, as you say. It's medicinal, I find. When I don't feel well, if I feel depressed, I go to the piano and I practice, and after a while I start to feel much better. And it's actually wonderful. We have the best medicine to our disposal.
And we were fortunate in that we were a bubble. You know, we had to form bubbles during the pandemic. You could form a bubble with one member of either family, but Ben and I were in our Beethoven bubble.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
because it's work. It's a work bubble.
That's a good bubble. I've never heard of the Beethoven bubble, but yes.
And as a matter of fact, this might interest you that after the first severe lockdown, where we actually couldn't see each other for 2 months, that lockdown was called on the 23rd of March, 2020, and then it was slightly eased 2 months later, towards the end of June. So what we did is, I live here on Hampstead Heath in a big communal garden, beautiful garden. I have an electric piano, a clavinova as well, and we actually made arrangements to take this piano outside, and we went and played to the residents of the 4 mansion blocks where I live in the garden.
Oh, wow.
We played 2 symphonies. We played the Eroica and the Beethoven Ninth, and it was a gusty evening, and there was even a little bit of rain, and the birds nearly went crazy. The parakeets,
Really?
when we started the Eroica, the parakeets just came in like a chorus, and the residents absolutely loved it. They sat there with, warm clothes and umbrellas, people on the balconies, people on the heath standing listening. People were so thrilled to hear live music, and we were so happy to be able to do it.
Yes, I get goosebumps now that you're talking about that. This is amazing what you've done, but isn't it? It's when I hear these things, this is what you are about, you artists. You just get on with it and find a way and touch people, and I think this is wonderful. Yeah.
Well,
No.
we are very lucky to do this job. It's not easy always. We've had lots of adversities as a result, particularly of what happened in the world. But we have our music, and that is a big reward.
Yeah. What is it exactly about Beethoven that is for you so special that you devote so much time on that?
That's a big question. I truly believe that he was one of the greatest minds that has come out of mankind, basically. They'd even sent his Ninth Symphony in a satellite up into space as something that would represent humanity.
Really?
An achievement of humanity. I can't remember the exact particulars of that, but for me, it's very telling that they chose that piece and that they chose to send Beethoven out there. He was a true philosopher, not only in his music, but as a human being. I think he expressed something really very profound that I don't think many other composers managed. And everyone who came after him, I think, modeled themselves almost in a way on something that he had achieved. And somehow, so seminal.
Yeah, and it is, we both love Beethoven so much, so, admire everything that he's written. And it has been so enriching to be able to be so deeply involved now with these symphonies, obviously as solo pianists as well. We've both done a lot of the solo repertoire and concertos by Beethoven, but these symphonies have concentrated and brought us together in this intimate way of playing the duos connected to Beethoven's music. And quite honestly, I couldn't think of anything more wonderful at my time in my life than to do this now with Ben.
Well, I agree. And one also has to add that Beethoven is very difficult to perform, not only because of the technical demands, but I think there is a musical depth that one needs, you can only achieve with life experience. And it's interesting, and particularly the late works, I think one can very quickly hear if somebody hasn't experienced life and hasn't really felt this music for a long time. And that's why, indeed, Andras Schiff said that in his master classes at the Royal Academy when he spoke about the last three sonatas for piano. He said that he finds it a little bit of a problem for very young pianists to perform these late works because they might not yet have the musical understanding and depth that is so important. So that's the thing about Beethoven. I think it's a perpetual challenge, a lifelong process.
Constant journey.
Like any great composer, really. I mean, one can feel that with Chopin as well, or with Bach or Mozart, is that you have to live with it for a long time. You can't just... But I think Beethoven is particularly challenging in that sense.
I never realized it, but now that you're saying it, I can just imagine that you are then at the stages of your life, you play it then different, or you find different things. Do you still discover some things about his work or in his work that you didn't realize?
Most definitely.
Definitely. As I'm a few years Ben senior, I find that works that I studied, when I was a student of the late Beethoven sonatas or any sonatas, having played these works for many decades, it does change, I think, one's life's experience and understanding of the music and just life, contributes to insight that might, certainly in my case, would not have been there when I learned the pieces when I was 18 or 16 or 20 or whatever. So it is a constant, as I say, journey with the music of understanding and development, kind of searching, and it'll never stop. I think one will never, one is trying to kind of, the word, not reaching perfection is impossible, but it is a constant source of study.
Definitely. I also wanted to say that I went to a little trip up north to the Lake Districts here in England recently, and I went to the birthplace of William Wordsworth, who was born in exactly the same year as Beethoven in 1770. So I was thinking, what a wonderful period that also was in music history and in history, where Wordsworth was producing this beautiful romantic poetry. Beethoven did the same with his music. Then you had William Turner, who made these incredible paintings. So it's almost as if these titans of the art, of art, have actually all, they came out of the woodwork. And Goethe also.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's an incredible thing. And then that really paved the way for all the romantic geniuses to flourish. So that really, it's an historical connection that I think is unsurpassed.
And now, do you think this makes it very difficult for younger composers to try and aspire to that, or that they, that is it possible to even get there where he was?
Again, that's a very big question. But music has changed a lot over the centuries, obviously, and tonal music has sort of disappeared for, I mean, when Arnold Schoenberg, he was very inspired by Beethoven, and I think he took a lot from Beethoven's methods and developed a new sort of sphere or style of music in an atonal way, and eventually also with 12-tone music. And that, I think the 20th century was just such a different time, with all the wars and turbulent things that happened in the Soviet world as well. Very interesting. So music really changed a lot, and that also made it possible for composers to develop their styles. I mean, look at Stravinsky, for example. We actually are celebrating the 50th anniversary of his death in New York. And Stravinsky is, for me, like the Picasso of music, really, because he had so many different styles and stylistic periods in his life. He dabbled with new classicism, late romanticism, also with serialism, so many different styles. And that, I think, also made it possible. And I think that can be traced back to Beethoven, because he had many different style periods as well.
But also talking about Stravinsky in the early 20th century, when some of his works were first performed, the audiences threw tomatoes at the performers.
Really?
I mean, they objected. They thought the music was gross. So, who knows? Some of the music one hears today, who knows how this will be accepted, in the fullness of time.
Yeah, we do have some wonderful geniuses on this planet still. I think I particularly admire John Adams, and a lot of the American composers, I think, achieved a lot with their music. And I personally like to work with composers myself. I think it's important to also venture into music and commission pieces. And I am, even in this week, I have been communicating with younger composers who are sending me very interesting scores. So that is a wonderful area of research as well.
Yeah, I can just imagine if you work with the composer and understand what was the idea or the inspiration behind it, also probably makes you play it differently.
Definitely. I mean, you worked with McCabe, didn't you?
Yes, John McCabe, a British composer, who actually was also a very fine pianist, and has written quite a lot of piano repertoire.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, I have played some of his music, but even South African composers, with the Ubuntu ensemble that I spoke about earlier, we have performed 2 chamber works by 2 eminent contemporary South African composers, one quintet by Peter Klatzo and the other a piano sextet written by David Earl. So that was also an interesting experience, and we were all very pleased to be able to give the first performances of these works here in London.
Oh, that's great. Mm. So tell me now, is there now going to be a concert or a series of concerts with this music on that you have on the recordings?
Yes, in fact, we are. That's why we're here today. We are rehearsing for next Saturday's concert at the Royal Overseas League, where it all started. We are playing the Eroica Symphony, as well as 3 short works by Arnold van Wyk, a very prominent South African composer. He wrote these beautiful pieces called 3 Improvisations on Dutch Folk Songs in 1942, during the war years here in London. And it was performed at Myra Hiss's National Gallery concert and it's for piano duet. It's a beautiful work, and so it's very nice to combine that with the Eroica in the concert. And it's at 11 o'clock in the morning, UK time, at the Royal Overseas League, and it will be streamed, and there will also be a live audience.
Oh, that's great. So please send me the link of the streaming. That would be great. I would post this as well. And that concert is also with the pieces that you have on the CD, on the recording.
Yes, that includes the Symphony No. 3, the Eroica, which is on the CD.
And now, do you play all the pieces on one piano, or do you have 2 pianos?
The symphonies are all on one piano because they're written for one piano, 4 hands. But the pieces that accompany the symphonies on our CDs are on 2 pianos, aren't they?
Yes. Yes, so it is logistically sometimes more complicated to find a venue with 2 pianos, but at least the symphonies and many of the duet works we can play on one instrument. Yes.
Okay. And are you coming to Vienna with that concert?
Who knows? We might do. It would be wonderful to be able to do that.
Yes.
As my grandparents were both born in Vienna.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, this would be so
Yes, you have a very musical family also, coming from Germany and Vienna, so in Austria and Hungary even, you have got Hungarian ancestry. So it's very interesting. There is a bit of a Hungarian touch in the Eroica as well, I find, in the last movement.
Really?
So, no, we really find the Austro-Hungarian world very interesting, and Vienna is obviously an amazing center of that.
That would be so wonderful if you could come, and you would please let me know, because I would so love to come. And
of course, we would let you know.
Yeah, no, that would be wonderful. May I ask you something on a very lighter note? How do you prepare now for, not prepare, prepare, you practice these pieces, but what do you do the day before the day of the concert? How do you prepare to go on stage? Do you have little rituals that you do, or little...
Well, there are many rituals, I think. But Tessa is very, you believe in bananas, eating a banana.
Yeah, very definitely a banana is an essential fruit to have around in the green room, and it contains certain minerals that are really important for any performer. And it's interesting that I noticed that many, many years ago when I used to watch Wimbledon, the tennis, that many of the players during matches, when they went to sit down, they had their water bottles and a banana.
Really?
And I was always, interested to see them munching away at the banana. And then as the years progressed, this is exactly what I do.
Yes.
We both eat bananas before we play.
Potassium, very good for the muscles, and it also calms you, I think, during because it is an intense business to perform. I mean, you're placed on you're in the spotlight when you play, and that is an abnormal situation really for any human. I can't imagine how these Olympic athletes, how they must feel. Like I see the divers, for example, and they have to stand on that podium and they have one shot and they just have to produce something. And so music and sport, they are very strong links. Definitely on the psychological level.
I was actually talking to a ballet dancer during this lockdown time as well, and he was saying something interesting that I didn't realize, but he said that when you practice, you can push yourself up to a certain level, but the moment you perform, you push yourself to a level that you only do when you perform. And he said during the year of lockdown, he felt that even though they trained or they did, little classes and so on, it was that thing that they missed, that pushing yourself to that level when you perform, that didn't happen. Do you find that as well as a pianist?
I think there's a lot of truth in that. And I feel that every performance that one gives in public, it's also like a fast forward process in one's development and understanding, because it's a whole other experience. When one's practicing together and of course by oneself, in order to gain a certain, confidence or however, when you are performing a piece as a whole, it is a completely different experience, and that experience and performing, communicating it to an audience enhances one's understanding and takes it forward, takes the whole process forward to the next time.
Insights that you can't really obtain just during a normal practice session.
Exactly.
So that is true.
Yeah. And of course, you have that from the audience as well, the energy from the audience.
Definitely. That is a tremendously important element. It's one thing for the performers, but it's the other thing to have that audience and to have their response, which one can sense.
Yeah. Well, this was now so lovely to talk to you, and I really please when you have a next project and concert, let me know. It's so fascinating what you are talking about, and I love the two of you together. It's amazing. Your chemistry together is amazing. What is the next work for you now? The next project?
We have a recording also coming up in October, and during that session we are planning to do Symphonies number 1 and 6, and also piece by Busoni for 2 pianos. What we do find is that it's a very expensive project because we have to hire the hall and the pianos and the sound engineer, and this is obviously also not always easy for us to find the funding during these times. So we are working on that as well and trying to communicate with people.
And in advance of the recording, we're very happy now that the lockdown has eased, because we'll be doing quite a number of concerts in the run-up to this. We'll be playing almost like every week, soon. Yeah. So that'll keep us busy.
And we're happy getting back to live audiences, because as you say, the rapport with the audience is a big factor, and to play into a camera or into a microphone is just not the same, is it? I think it's very important to have that interaction. But anyway,
That's-
thank you very much
yeah.
for the opportunity
No,
to talk about it as well.
I feel honored. I love this whole story about the score that you kept, and that it comes from your mother, and this whole thing. It makes the whole project and the whole idea for me so much so special, really, that I think it's wonderful that you share this story.
And just finally, I want to show you, Benny, just get that picture of Beethoven. We were terribly happy that our producer from Song, Siva Oak, she agreed to use this picture of Beethoven on the cover of our CD, which has just come out. And this was also in my mother's room in Berlin, this picture.
Really?
Yes. And so, you know, I took this picture when we first recorded the Eroica in Surrey at the Menuhin School. I took the picture along and showed it to our producer, and she never forgot this picture, which is so striking, and it is now on the cover of our CD.
Oh, this is special. Oh, this is so special. Please, Ben, can you send it to me electronically?
I have all of these, yes.
I want to put this on this video, because I think this is so special. Oh, I love these types of things. This is really wonderful. Yeah, well, I hope you have a wonderful time practicing now as well. And
Thank you.
yeah, and it was so lovely to talk to you.
And lovely to meet you and to talk to you. And thank you too very much.
No, it was my pleasure and my honor. And I hope to meet you both one day in real life soon.
Thank you.
Baie dankie, Petra.